I need to tell you about this amazing little toad. It's an amphibian that we nearly drove to extinction. We did in the wild, but we have now successfully reintroduced it and began saving this species. This is the Kihansi spray toad. They are native, or endemic, to the base of the Kihansi River waterfall in Tanzania. That habitat, which is covered by the spray of the waterfall, is only about 2 hectares. Well, that's just enough that you could barely cover 4 football fields. That's a tiny micro habitat that these guys are endemic to. It's actually the smallest known range of any terrestrial vertebrate. With such a small range, of course, it means the amphibian, the toad itself, is very small. Males typically are larger than females, and those males only get to be about the size of a quarter. That's tiny. That's nothing. If that didn't make this little toad amazing enough, they give live birth. Yeah, that means no little tadpoles, no swimming down to water and laying eggs. These toads give birth to miniature versions of themselves. And if the full-grown adults are the size of quarters, look how tiny the babies are. It's amazing. I really hope you are all as excited about this amphibian as I am. Seriously, this little amphibian, lives in an area a quarter of the size of this floor space of Buckingham Palace, gives live birth, and is smaller than a quarter. And they're just out there. They've only been discovered in the last 30 years. It was actually only about 1996 that they were first discovered. Unfortunately, at that time, their future already looked very bleak. It's because in 1994, the government of Tanzania approved a dam, a hydroelectric dam, for the Kihansi River. It's very important to the local economy, provides lots of electricity. However, it reduced the overall water flow by almost 90%, leaving less than 10% of the original water flow, reducing the overall spray, reducing that microhabitat to a very tiny, basically unlivable size. What makes matters even worse is shortly after that happened, a fungus ravaged the remaining population. And at this point is when they were actually declared extinct in the wild. Thankfully, in 2001, the Bronx Zoo, along with a few others, started a captive breeding program. They did this in hopes of saving a species. Well, and they did. The unique habitat requirements, however, proved very difficult to replicate, so it took them almost 3 years to get it right. Then in late 2004, they really began to see real success. They shared this technique, the Bronx Zoo, with Toledo, with Detroit, and really began successfully breeding them in multiple locations. The Toledo Zoo, in fact, now has thousands of individuals, most of which who aren't on display, that are alive and thriving. They work successfully with the Bronx, the Detroit zoos, like I said, but also with the Henry Dorley Zoo. So we've got places basically all across the country that are working in conjunction with local conservation groups in Tanzania to save this species. But if you remember, because of the dam, essentially 90% of the original habitat was destroyed or lost. So they set up a sprinkler system, and they had tried this in the past, but it was now perfected due to the practice that they had in breeding them in captivity. We're able to install a sprinkler system that mimicked the original spray, replaced the lost habitat, and we have, starting in 2010, began to reintroduce them into the wild. They started in 2010 with about 100 individuals, and now, at of last count, which was in 2021, there was over 6,000 individuals in that native microhabitat. It's estimated that in that area, a healthy population before, human involvement would be about 17,000 individuals. So if you think about it, to go from essentially none in the wild to recovering 35% of the original population in less than 12 years is amazing. You hear about species dying and losing them all the time. And yes, that is a big deal, and we shouldn't lose focus on that, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't celebrate when we succeed. And at this rate, as long as the conservation continues, this species could easily reach original levels. And you don't really hear about that often. If you liked this content and you want to see more, don't forget to like this video and hit the subscribe button.